Hi guys, my name is Phil. What I'm going to be going to do today is to bed this base to this receiver. Okay, this is my rifle. It's a Weatherby Vanguard in 243 Winchester. And usually what you would do is get a steel bedding compound such as JB Weld, DevCon, Marine Tex, that kind of thing. And you would apply the compound to the bottom of the base here where it contacts the receiver, and then you would use something like Kiwi shoe polish or another kind of release agent for the areas on the top of the action here. Screw it down very, very lightly, or even just place it on and just index with the screws, and then once it's fully cured, tap it off, clean up the edges, the screw holes, and what you're going to have is 100% contact between the base and the receiver. Okay, more contact, more friction, and it's going to hold up better under recoil, and it's going to add less stress to the screws itself. Now I was going to try this method, but I thought I'd like to try something a little bit different. I would like to glue the receiver, glue the base onto the receiver itself. Now the only problem with that is if ever you need to remove it for any reason, you're going to be coming into a lot of trouble. If you use standard JB Weld or something like that, you're going to have big problems taking it off if you need to sell the rifle, or something's stuck in the action, you can't quite get it out for any reason. So I'm going to be using 5-minute epoxy. Again, very inexpensive stuff. Generally, the shorter the cure time, the weaker the epoxy is going to be. Okay, all I'm going to use this for is to make sure under recoil the screws aren't acting as a recoil, like they're not taking all the recoil. The glue is, okay, but if ever I need to pop it off because it's not too strong, put a block of the wood on the side of here, tap it off, and it should come off. If it doesn't, you can use a heat gun or something like that just to weaken the epoxy a little bit more, or even put it in a deep freeze, and hopefully the aluminium and steel will contract at different rates, and it kind of just pops off by itself sometimes. If not, just a little bit of a tap and it should do it. So this is not really a bedding job per se, it's more of a glue-in. But we're going to have 100% contact, and there should be no problems there. Okay, I don't see why I'd never need to take it off. I don't intend on selling it, but you never know. You can't foretell the future and see what's going to happen. You may need to take it off for some reason. Now, normally you wouldn't have to do this if this base came with a recoil. Like some of them have a little tab here which butts onto the back of the front base there, and that acts as a recoil buffer or even a recoil lug. To prevent the scope from moving under recoil as the rifle wants to go back. The scope of the base wants to stay where they are, but that little recoil lug makes sure they move at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up the epoxy. I'm going to put it on the bottom here. I'm going to be placing on there and just lightly indexing. Okay. What I don't want to be doing is transferring any stress from the base to the action or vice versa. Traditionally, when you get a base in the post or in the store or wherever you get one from, you would screw, say, the rear end, the back of the action, and not the front end, and see if there's any play. If you press down on it and you feel any play, you'll also hear the base tapping the action as you press down and it flexes. That means that front end needs to be bedded. If you don't see any play there, you can then screw the front end in and see if there's any play on the back end and see if that needs bedding. Okay. As it happens, this is pretty much dead nuts on. There's no play in each end, so all I'm going to be doing is just lightly screwing the screws down, and there should be no transfer of stress between the base and the action. Okay, so I'm going to pop this off, and I'm going to squirt some on there. Hopefully it's the same amount, that should be enough. You have to work reasonably quick with this stuff. You've got literally a minute to work with. Wrong side, little indexing point there. Now what I'm going to do to make sure it doesn't adhere too well is, you've probably done it already, just rub my finger on there. The oils on my finger are going to act as a very poor release agent. Okay, it's not going to be very easy to remove, but it will remove a little bit easier than if you didn't do that. Okay, and that should be enough. This scope base is actually from EGW Evolution Gunworks. I got this in the post a while back from the USA. I live in Canada. Not many people ship gun parts from the US to Canada, but these guys do. The base is actually very well machined. It seems pretty sturdy. And there was a little bit of a problem. I ordered a 20 MOA and they sent a 0 MOA. And after many emails and phone calls, they said it was me that ordered the wrong one and not them. And even though I, specifically said to the owner of the company what I wanted before the order was shipped, that didn't seem to matter to them. And so I said, okay, I'll send this back to you under my dollar. You send the correct one back to me under your dollar, and everybody's happy. Nope, we won't do that. They wanted me to pay postage to send this back to them, and they wanted me to pay postage for them to send the new base to me. So they lost a long-term customer to make a short-term buck. Not the way I'd run a business, but hey, there you go. So I wouldn't recommend dealings with them. There are plenty of other companies that make good scope bases, even though they are relatively cheap. This was $70–80. It pays to deal with a good company, and EGW just didn't seem very good to me, so I won't be dealing with them. Anyway, I found a local gunsmith machinist, and he's actually machined in 20 MOA for me for $50, which isn't too bad. His name is Jeff, and he works for his own company, or works for himself rather. Grizzly Gunworks. If you type that into Google, you'll see the kind of stuff he does. And very good guy to deal with. Very passionate about what he does, which is always a plus. So, when it comes to mixing epoxy, you really want to have every molecule of part A sitting right next to his friend molecule from part B, and that will give the absolute best adhesion, and that comes from proper mixing. So try and scrape the bottom to the top, stir it around, try different patterns of mixing, and it should be all good. Another reason I'm doing this is the back part of the base, the rear end of the base, is actually machined flat. It's probably very difficult to machine it with a slight radius, because the radius of the receiver is actually extremely mild on the front, not as aggressive as the front, which you can see like a little semicircle. So the extreme edges are not going to be in full contact. So it's probably been over a minute now, I'm not quite sure. But I mixed that properly. This stuff sets like lightning. 1 second it's soft, the next second it's gone pretty hard. So where are you going to put?